Crowds gathering at St. Peter's Square to witness the Pope's public appearance is nothing unusual. However, that morning, something unexpected happened. As Pope Francis moved toward Paul VI Hall, the anticipation was palpable. But in a moment that caught many off guard, he appeared to lose his balance, causing an audible gasp among those present. How does a single moment of instability impact the perception of a leader revered by millions? Could this be a symbolic reflection of the challenges facing the Catholic Church today? The brief moment of imbalance did not define the Pope's presence, nor did it diminish his authority. Instead, it became a powerful display of resilience. If you enjoy content that helps you grow spiritually, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and join our community for more inspiration. Let's get started. Despite the incident, he steadied himself with remarkable composure, offering a reassuring smile to the congregation. His ability to continue unshaken reflected not only physical endurance, but a metaphorical testament to his leadership amid turbulent times. The atmosphere in Paul VI Hall shifted as he advanced toward the designated seating area. His steps were careful, yet his face carried the warmth that made him beloved worldwide. As he settled into his chair, the applause continued, a mix of admiration and relief from those who had witnessed the near mishap. This day was particularly significant, coinciding with the celebration of Candlemas, a feast deeply rooted in Christian tradition. Marking the presentation of Jesus at the temple, it is a reminder of faith's guiding light. The Pope's presence during such an occasion underscored the importance of spiritual endurance, mirroring the essence of the festival itself. Surrounded by clergy and devoted followers, Pope Francis took a moment to acknowledge the overwhelming reception. His gaze met those of many who had traveled great distances for this gathering, their expressions filled with reverence. There was no trace of concern on his face regarding the earlier moment of instability, only a steadfast focus on the message he was about to deliver. The silence that followed was heavy with expectation. It was not merely the presence of the Pope that mattered, but the words he was about to share. Aware of the weight carried by his voice, he prepared to address the assembly, knowing that his message would resonate far beyond those walls, reaching millions across the globe. The rhythmic sound of hushed murmurs filled Paul VI Hall as Pope Francis adjusted his posture, his hands resting gently on the arms of his chair. The significance of the day extended beyond the gathering itself. It was the feast of the presentation of the Lord, an occasion marked by centuries of Christian tradition. The flickering glow of candlelight from the faithful illuminated the solemnity of the moment, symbolizing the light of Christ entering the world. At times, we all encounter moments where the weight of uncertainty presses upon us, and the path ahead feels obscured. In these instances, seeking wisdom can transform our perspective. This is exactly what the secret of Jesus' apparitions offers, a path to clarity and peace through his revelations. This ebook goes into his prophecies and offers insight into what lies ahead. It's available for free in the pinned comment. Grab it now before the edition's gone. Dressed in white vestments, the Pope watched as clergy members carried candles, their flames swaying with the faint draft of the Grand Hall. This observance, deeply rooted in biblical history, commemorated the moment Mary and Joseph presented Jesus at the temple, fulfilling the Mosaic law. His expression softened as he observed the reverence of those before him, their devotion evident in every movement. The scriptural passage of the day spoke of Simeon, the devout man who had been promised by the Holy Spirit that he would not see death before witnessing the Messiah. When Mary and Joseph arrived at the temple with the infant Jesus, Simeon took the child in his arms and declared, For my eyes have seen your salvation, which you have prepared in the sight of all nations, a light for revelation to the Gentiles and the glory of your people Israel. Luke 2:30-32. These words, recited once again within the walls of the Vatican, echoed the theme of hope and fulfillment. The Pope's gaze lingered on the gathered faithful as the procession continued, each candle held with careful reverence. The significance of light in Christian faith resonated deeply, representing clarity amid darkness, guidance through uncertainty, and the presence of God in a world often consumed by turmoil. This was more than just a ceremony. It was a reminder of faith's enduring presence, just as the early disciples had carried Christ's teachings forward through generations. Beyond its theological meaning, Candlemas also held cultural significance in various parts of the world. From Spain to Latin America, believers celebrated with processions, prayers, and offerings, embracing the day as a renewal of faith. The Pope, ever attuned to the global diversity of Catholic traditions, acknowledged the unity found in this shared devotion. His voice carried through Paul VI Hall, addressing the faithful with deliberate clarity. He turned to the essence of the celebration, Jesus as salvation, light, and a sign of contradiction, a message rooted in the Scriptures. Quoting the words spoken by Simeon in the temple, he reminded the audience of a promise fulfilled. For my eyes have seen your salvation, which you have prepared before the face of all peoples. Luke 2:30-31. The Pope emphasized that salvation was not exclusive, but universal, offered beyond the boundaries of nations, cultures, and social structures. He warned against the temptation of a faith confined to rituals alone, urging believers to embody Christ's teachings in their daily lives. Moving forward, he reflected on the concept of Christ as the light of the world. Light does not merely illuminate, it exposes, reveals, and guides. I have come into the world as light, so that no one who believes in me should stay in darkness. John 12:46. Jesus had proclaimed. Pope Francis challenged those listening to consider whether they truly followed this light or remained comfortable in the shadows of inaction. In moments of uncertainty, a guiding light can make all the difference. If you're seeking understanding, don't forget. The free ebook is still available, but copies are limited. Find it in the first pinned comment before it's gone. His tone shifted as he addressed the more difficult truth: Christ as a sign of contradiction. Jesus did not conform to the expectations of his time. He disrupted traditions, confronted hypocrisy, and called for change. The Pope recalled Simeon's prophecy to Mary, a forewarning of resistance. Behold, this child is destined for the fall and rise of many in Israel, and to be a sign that will be spoken against. Luke 2:34. The reality of faith, he explained, was not always met with acceptance. True discipleship required courage, as Christ himself had faced opposition, even from those who claimed to await the Messiah. He drew attention to the countless instances throughout history where the gospel was met with rejection, even within societies that professed Christianity. There were those who embraced the comforting aspects of faith, but rejected its demands for justice and mercy. The Pope cautioned against a selective faith, one that embraced only the parts that required no sacrifice. The Angelus resounded in Paul VI Hall, each verse carrying the weight of devotion. He led the prayer with steady reverence, his voice measured yet commanding, as the faithful recited the words passed down through generations. More than just a ritual, this prayer celebrating the Incarnation brought millions of people together in a common act of faith and brought the globe closer together. As the prayer concluded, he turned his reflections toward Mary's role in the divine plan. He stressed that her submission to God was an act of great confidence and unshakable faith, not a passive acquiescence. She accepted a mission that would alter history, not with reluctance, but with complete surrender to God's will. Do whatever He tells you. John 2:5, she had instructed at Cana, demonstrating the essence of discipleship, absolute confidence in Christ's guidance. The Pope spoke of Mary's journey as one of silent strength and sacrifice. She had faced uncertainty from the moment the angel Gabriel appeared to her, yet she did not waver. She endured hardship in Bethlehem, fleeing with her child into Egypt, and later watched as he grew into a man who would be rejected by many. Even at the foot of the cross, when her son was condemned, humiliated, and crucified, she remained steadfast. She embodied the pain of a mother, yet never abandoned her faith. Throughout the centuries, Marian devotion had taken countless forms across different cultures. Pope Francis acknowledged how millions of believers sought her intercession, not as an alternative to Christ, but as a guiding presence leading them toward Him. From the Virgen de Guadalupe in Latin America to Our Lady of Lourdes in France, Mary had been a source of comfort and spiritual refuge for those in need. He highlighted the importance of recognizing this devotion as a bridge, never a barrier, to the true foundation of faith, Jesus Himself. He reminded the faithful that Mary's role did not end with Jesus' birth or death. She remained present in the early church, praying alongside the apostles, witnessing the first days of Christianity. Her unwavering belief was a model of perseverance, a testament to the endurance of faith even in the face of suffering. Faith is a journey, and wisdom is a gift meant to be shared. If today's message resonates with you, you won't want to miss this exclusive ebook. Grab your free copy now, only a few left. Pope Francis's expression grew solemn as he shifted his focus toward the state of the world, addressing the suffering caused by ongoing conflicts and humanitarian crises. He spoke of nations plagued by violence, where war had become an unrelenting force, leaving thousands displaced, wounded, or mourning their loved ones. He denounced the destruction of innocent lives, urging those in positions of power to seek reconciliation rather than domination. His voice carried the weight of urgency as he referenced the crisis in the Holy Land, a region long marred by division. He lamented the deepening wounds in Palestine and Israel, calling for dialogue instead of destruction, for peace instead of vengeance. The conflict had stolen the futures of too many children, shattered families, and created endless cycles of retaliation. He reminded the faithful that true peace is never built upon hatred. It is only achieved through justice, mercy, and the courage to forgive. Turning his attention to Ukraine, he expressed sorrow for the prolonged war that continued to devastate the country. The Pope called on global leaders to abandon ambitions of conquest and to recognize the suffering of civilians caught between geopolitical struggles. War, he warned, does not determine who is right, only who remains. He urged all believers to pray not just for peace, but for hearts to be softened, so that leaders might act with wisdom rather than pride. He then spoke of Myanmar and regions in Africa, where violence, persecution, and displacement had become unbearable realities. He condemned the targeting of religious minorities, emphasizing that faith should never be a reason for oppression, but a bridge for understanding. His call was clear. Governments and organizations must work together to provide relief, shelter, and dignity to those stripped of their homes. As his words reverberated, he pleaded for solidarity. Peace, he said, was not the absence of war, but the presence of justice, a responsibility that belonged not only to leaders, but to every person committed to truth and reconciliation. Pope Francis lifted his gaze toward the thousands gathered before him, shifting his focus to the responsibilities of faith in an increasingly fractured world. He reminded the faithful that prayer alone was not enough. True discipleship required action. Faith, he declared, should never be confined to words spoken within the walls of a church, but must manifest in the way people lived, how they treated others, and the choices they made daily. He urged believers to stand firm in defending the dignity of all human life, emphasizing the Church's unwavering commitment to the most vulnerable. Across many nations, the sanctity of life had been disregarded, reduced to political debates and ideological divisions. He called for an authentic culture of life, one that extended beyond birth and encompassed care for the sick, the elderly, the poor, and the forgotten. A single revelation can change everything. Don't wait to seek the guidance you need. Download the free ebook now while it's still available. First pinned comment has all the details. Addressing Italy's Day for Life, he reaffirmed that every person, regardless of age, status, or circumstance, carried inherent value. He reminded the faithful that caring for life was not a passive obligation, but an active mission. He invoked Psalm 139, 13-14, saying, "For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made." These words, spoken by David, reflected the divine intention behind every human existence, an intention that must be defended and cherished. He then turned to the upcoming Vatican Summit on children's rights, emphasizing that the Church had a duty to ensure the protection and well-being of the youngest members of society. Too many children around the world lived without access to education, healthcare, or basic security. Many had been exploited, trafficked, and abandoned, left to navigate a world that had failed them. He called upon governments and institutions to take decisive action in upholding the rights of every child, ensuring they grew up in an environment that fostered love, protection, and hope. If this message makes you think, and you feel it connects with you, don't forget to like it, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment. Also, if you really want to support our work and help us keep creating valuable content, consider giving us a super thanks. Join this amazing community and don't miss any news. His reflections extended to societal divisions, particularly the widening gaps between the privileged and the impoverished. He condemned indifference, reminding the faithful that charity was not an occasional act, but a way of life. He warned against a world where wealth dictated a person's worth, and where those with abundance ignored the suffering of those without. Echoing Christ's command to love one another, he called upon every Christian to act, not just through donations, but through personal involvement, advocacy, and compassion in daily encounters. His message was clear: faith without action was an empty vessel. Being a follower of Christ meant stepping beyond comfort and engaging with the world's wounds. Those who listened were not merely spectators, but participants in the divine call to justice, mercy, and truth.